Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, it's easy and fast.
When his wife paused and looked at him, Michael responded, "I understand." Michael thought he had said, "I understand," many times in the last few days and was truly tired of repeating those words. He wondered how he and his wife, Sarah, had even reached this point. They had been married for over 22 years and had 2 wonderful children, both in college. They lived in a beautiful old house in Georgetown, Washington, D.C., which Sarah had inherited from her grandmother. Together, they had renovated the house, adding a pool in the backyard and a separate garage. The old house now had an open-concept floor plan and a beautifully remodeled kitchen. Michael was proud of the house and thought it rivaled anything they had seen on HGTV. They also had a beach house in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, which Michael resisted changing, preferring to keep it as he remembered it from his childhood. A place filled with so many wonderful family memories. Michael Johnson was now the senior vice president of logistics at a multinational company based in Chicago and was enjoying the fruits of many years of hard work. Sarah Thompson had also been successful in her career. She was a senior account manager at the investment firm Harrison & Co., where she had worked for the past 20 years. Michael thought they had a perfect home, nearly perfect children, wonderful careers, and a happy marriage. Until, often he said, "I understand." But he knew that, in reality, he didn't understand what was happening in Sarah's life. Sarah stopped and looked at him. "Do you understand what I'm trying to say?" "I understand," he replied, hoping she wouldn't notice the mark he made on the paper in front of him. He looked at the paper, 32 marks in the last 2 days. He had said "I understand" to his wife 32 times. "It's time to end this debate," Sarah said finally. "So, we're finally in agreement," said Sarah. "I'm going to step out of our marriage once to experience this." She stopped when she saw Michael shaking his head. Michael looked Sarah in the eyes and responded, "I will never cheat on you. And I don't agree with you cheating on me." "I never cheated on you," exclaimed Sarah. Michael continued, "I'm willing to forgive you for the cheating you've done so far, but that's it. I never cheated on you." Sarah replied defiantly, "Yes, you did, at least in my opinion. And if you're honest with yourself, you know it. You had lunch with Ethan Carter several times. He met you at bachelorette parties a few times and turned those nights into real dates. You corresponded with him extensively through text messages, especially on weekends." Michael paused and looked deeply into her eyes, causing Sarah to lower her head. Now he has booked a luxury room at the Four Seasons and 2 seats for their Sunday brunch. His intentions are obvious. You have a new, daring dress hidden in the back of your closet, a bag from Victoria's Secret full of new lingerie. I assume it was just for his eyes, since you hid it from me. Your intentions are also obvious. Michael stopped and waited for a response that never came. "I'm going to make this very simple. I'll make sure we both understand what's going to happen. I offer 2 options. This Saturday morning, I'm going to the beach house in Cape Cod. I'll stop at the Blue Diner for breakfast and then head to the beach. I'd like you to come with me. We can spend the weekend discussing our issues and wondering if we can save our marriage. It would be nice if you returned the lingerie you bought for him and picked out something for us to have fun with." Michael paused, trying to gauge Sarah's reaction, but once again, he couldn't read her mind. Something he had never struggled with until recently. "Your other option is to go through with your plans for Saturday. Meet Ethan Carter at the Four Seasons. Have a nice romantic dinner at La Bernardine. Dance at the Marquis, and return to the Four Seasons to complete your romance." "Look at me." She slowly raised her head. "You can go through with your plans. You won't need my permission, because the moment I leave without you on Saturday morning, our marriage will be over." Sarah looked at Michael in shock. How did he know about her plans for the weekend? She started to speak slowly, but before she could say a word, Michael said, "In case you were wondering, I have friends where you work. You have friends at work who care about you. And finally, Ethan Carter has no real friends at all." Sarah paused as what Michael said began to sink in. Then she tried to go on the offensive. "I've been your faithful wife and partner for 22 years. You weren't a faithful wife for 21 years and 10 months. You've been cheating on me since your first lunch with Ethan Carter." "I never cheated on you," Sarah pleaded. "You were already having an affair with him," Michael began to say. Sarah jumped up and interrupted him. "I never cheated on you," she said, her voice filled with a sadness that surprised her. Michael continued, "I saw the betrayal in your eyes. Eyes that were always locked on mine when we made love. Eyes that now close, a face that turns away from mine in bed. How many times were you with him when we were making love?" Michael laughed sadly. "We've had a crowded bed these last few months. I won't talk about it anymore. Do you understand?" Sarah thought things weren't going as she had planned. She tried to take the lead. "We have a wonderful marriage. I value our relationship and your love more than anything in the world. We raised 2 wonderful children together. We have great careers, and if we keep this up, we can retire early and truly enjoy life and each other. I was faithful to you and was ready to stand by your side as a loving wife until the end of our days. I'll give you the rest of my days. I just need 1 day for myself and 1 night for him." That was Michael's quick response. Sarah lowered her gaze and shook her head. She looked at Michael. "I could have acted behind your back. I could have lied to you. but I wanted to be open and honest with you. I thought, after all these years, you'd understand." Michael responded quickly again. "I understand, and as for lying and acting behind my back, that's exactly what you've been doing for the last few months. You went out with him under the pretense of a bachelorette party. You had an intimate dinner with him, holding hands and letting his hands wander over your body, which only I should have access to. And worst of all, you brought him into our bedroom, replacing us intimately. Sarah, I know everything, and how I found out doesn't matter. What matters is that you understand what I'm talking about. Do you understand?" Sarah simply looked at him with eyes he no longer understood, sighed silently, realizing she didn't grasp what she was throwing away. Michael stood up and left the room. He went to their bedroom, brushed his teeth, and tried to sleep, but he knew it would be hard to sleep that night. Sarah remained still for several minutes. Finally, she moved to the couch, picked up the phone, and called her friend Emily. When Emily answered, Sarah said, "Michael knows everything. He knows about Ethan and our plans for this weekend." Emily responded, "That doesn't sound good. Please tell me you're going to cancel this." Sarah replied quietly, "I don't know how I can do that. I promised Ethan, and he spent a lot of money on this weekend." Emily responded quickly, "You made promises to Michael before. If you don't remember, I do. I was your maid of honor. Carter can cancel everything, and it won't cost him a penny. Anyway, that's not a reason to cheat on Michael." "No," Sarah repeated. Emily replied, "When I talked about what David and I did, I tried to make sure you understood that I would never have done it without his permission. But also, I told you we chose a man together and made sure it was someone we'd never see again. I told you we did everything correctly, but we still had issues we're trying to work through. You decided to get involved with a colleague, and now you're trying to justify it." Emily pleaded, "Please, forget this plan. Stop going out with Ethan, get on your knees, and apologize to Michael." Sarah responded softly, "But I need this. I really need to experience another man one more time in my life. Ethan is a nice guy, and the women at work say he's good in bed. A nice guy wouldn't get involved with a married woman," Emily said. "Think about what you're risking just to become another notch on his belt." "I won't be just another notch on his belt. He's attentive to me," Sarah said. Emily wanted to scream over the phone. "You don't understand that this is even worse. I met Ethan at our bachelorette party. He's a nice guy, but he's far from what Michael is. You owe this." "Right, I understand," Sarah whispered. Emily pleaded, "Please think carefully about your decision. This will affect everyone you love for the rest of your life." Sarah said quietly, "I thought you'd understand. I thought you, more than anyone, would understand why I need to do this." Emily tried to reach her friend again. "Sarah, the problem isn't that I don't understand. The problem isn't that your kids, your parents, or your friends don't understand. The problem is that you don't understand. I beg you not to do this." Sarah responded with a determined voice, "Well, Michael knows what I've been doing up to this point, and he didn't stop me. He won't like it, but he'll let me do it. He'll understand how important this is to me. Now I need to get some sleep." After ending the call, Emily turned to her husband David. "She didn't understand a word I said. I'm so sorry for telling her about our experience." David responded, "I thought we agreed that this would stay strictly between us." Emily was a bit confused. "I needed to talk to someone about the issues we were having. I never thought this would give her ideas." David hugged Emily and said, "I know, and I'm not mad. I thought. Have to admit, I also talked to Michael about our issues." Emily lowered her head, visibly embarrassed. "You told Michael. I can imagine how he reacted. Did he suggest you kick me out or brand me on the forehead?" "I thought you knew Michael better," David said. "He asked me a series of questions. My answers to those questions made me reflect on us. After I finished answering his questions, he said, 'You two got into this together. You made this decision together. It turned out to be a big mistake, but you two did it together, and only you two can fix this mistake. As long as we stay together working on our issues, everything will be fine. He made me realize that we were in this together, and both trying to solve our problems. That might be why we're still married," David explained. Emily started to cry and said quietly, "That might be why we're married, and we might be why he gets divorced." David shook his head, hugging his wife. "Don't blame yourself. If they split up, Michael is right. If they don't get through this together, they don't stand a chance." Sarah slipped into bed and realized Michael was awake. He turned his back to her, and they both moved to opposite ends of the bed. They were separated by 2 feet, but the distance seemed measured in miles. They woke up with the alarm and went through their morning routine without saying a single word to each other. After Sarah left for work, Michael relaxed for a moment and reviewed the list he had in his hands. That Friday and Monday, he took time off from work. He went through every room in the house, photographing each room and its contents, cataloged the contents of each room, and noted the items he wanted to keep. He copied all their wedding and family photos from the cloud to a USB drive. He left their wedding album on the living room table without daring to open it. The apartments he looked at in DuPont Circle were nice, but he knew he'd miss this house. He'd keep all the wonderful memories, but he'd miss being there. He'd missed the woman he couldn't stop loving and the life they'd built together. Michael went to meet with Rachel Miller, who had been highly recommended. The agreement she offered was clear and straightforward. Sarah would get the house in Georgetown in her retirement plan. Michael would keep the beach house in Cape Cod in his pension plan. He would pay for the car and all her credit card bills. A portion of their investment accounts would be set aside for college tuition and $10,000 for each child as an endowment fund. Then they would split the remaining funds equally. Michael looked at the agreement offer and simply nodded. Rachel said, "We can file the papers Wednesday morning." Michael nodded again, stood up, shook her hand, and left the office. Rachel Miller noticed that her client had said very few words since she was hired for his divorce. All their communication was done via email. She sensed sadness and resignation in him. Sometimes she wondered why she chose family law as her specialty. Michael went to the bank, opened a separate account, transferring half of the old account to the new one, and emailed the direct deposit change form to his company's HR department. Later, at home, he would switch his payments to his new bank account. Then he went to his investment banker, confirmed that both signatures would be required for all accounts and transfers. Michael informed him that his lawyer, Rachel Miller, would take possession of the accounts the day after Sarah was notified. Michael was bothered by the expression of pity and concern on the faces of his longtime advisors. He realized they were just the first of many acquaintances who would have the same expression when the news spread. The thought of having to tell his children about the divorce nearly made him sick. Sarah tried to avoid Ethan Carter at work as much as possible. At lunchtime, they met at the diner, a small restaurant she liked to call her place. She was quiet and refused to hold his hand. Michael knew everything about her movements. She couldn't shake the feeling all day that they were being watched. Ethan Carter didn't pay attention to Sarah's mood. "I'm excited for this weekend. Check-in at the hotel is at 3 p.m. Do you think we could meet a bit earlier than planned? Maybe we could have some fun in the room before going out to dinner," he said. "I don't think so," was Sarah's restrained response. Back at the office, Sarah tried to do something but kept looking around the office. She realized that at least one, and possibly more, of her colleagues were acting as spies for Michael. After a couple of unproductive hours, she ended the workday and left the office. Walking down the hallway, Sarah greeted two new interns in her department. She stopped and looked back at the interns. She couldn't help but notice the distinctive logo of Michael's logistics company on the backpack. One of them was carrying. Michael completed all the tasks on his list. It was 2 p.m. and he realized he hadn't eaten all day, so he decided to grab a snack. When he sat at a table at the diner, the hostess came out and greeted him with a hug. Michael hugged her tightly and asked, "How's he doing?" Emily smiled. "He's doing great. He made the soccer team as a freshman. He's thrilled. You know, James has been a great training partner this winter. Your son changed everything." "Well, James is excited that his roommate is on his team," Michael replied. Emily sat next to Michael and said, "They were here again for lunch today, but all is not well in paradise." Sarah was very nervous. And of course, Carter didn't understand anything. "He may be clueless, but he'll sleep with her. She must be a special woman to have been married for so long. She realized her mistake, and I just pray it happens before it's too late," Emily responded. Then Michael ordered crab cakes and smiled for the first time that day. "Sounds perfect, and maybe a beer for a change. Surprise me with one of your craft brews." Sarah returned home early and began putting her backup plan into action. She planned to cook Michael's favorite dinner and then try to talk to him again. It was important to her that he accept her one-time date. If he didn't agree, she needed him to at least accept her actions. When the crab cakes were baked, she went upstairs and changed. She wanted to look good for him, and then planned to meet Emily and her other friend Lauren for drinks to discuss the big day one last time on Saturday. She took the clothes in Victoria's Secret bags from her closet and walked to her car, carefully placing them in the trunk. She didn't want to embarrass either Michael or herself by exposing them to him. Michael arrived home at his usual time and was surprised to smell the aroma of dinner being prepared. Sarah entered the living room and handed him a bottle of Sam Adams. "Please, take off your jacket and tie and sit down. Dinner will be on the table in a couple of minutes," she said. Michael smiled at the crab cakes and steamed broccoli she brought him. He was happy because this was his favorite dish, but for the first time, he realized he'd rather be eating at the diner right now. He'd rather be anywhere but home. As they ate in silence, Sarah decided to try again to make him understand why she needed to do this. "Michael, I love you, and I hope you understand why." Michael interrupted her. "I understand. You look very nice today. Are you going somewhere?" "Yes, I'm meeting Emily and Lauren for drinks later tonight, but I'm trying to tell you that I love you and hope." Yes, you hope I understand," Michael said coldly. "I really understand." He stopped eating and moved away from the table. Standing up, "I lost my appetite." As he left, he told her, "You look really nice for him. I guess you couldn't wait until tomorrow. When you see Ethan Carter tonight, tell him to go to hell for me." Michael disappeared into the living room, and the sound of the television filled the dining room. Sarah sat silently at the table with her head in her hands. For the first time, she seriously reconsidered her actions. After a few minutes, she stood up and cleared the table. Now was not the time to doubt. She needed to stay true to her feelings. She texted Emily, "Can we meet earlier? I'm leaving in 5 minutes." Michael heard the front door open and close. He drank his beer and stared at the television. He realized he had been sitting there for 20 minutes and had no idea what channel he was watching. He felt the sadness pressing on his chest like a heavy weight, making it almost impossible to breathe. Michael pulled the box from his coat pocket, put 2 pills in his mouth, and washed them down with the rest of his beer. For the first time in his life, he took sleeping pills. He knew he wouldn't be able to sleep without help. He also knew he'd need all his strength for Saturday morning. Sarah was the first to arrive at the bar and asked for a table for 3. While waiting, she turned her attention to the scene at the bar. Men and women were dancing a dance of seduction, but to Sarah, it seemed like a dance of desperation and loneliness. Was this really her destiny? The arrival of her friends saved her from these thoughts. Sarah watched as her 2 friends approached the table. She noticed they seemed tense and ready for their attack. Lauren sat down and looked at Sarah. "What the hell are you doing? Are you crazy? You're going to cheat on your husband with some piece of trash from work. Are you going through menopause, or did you start taking pills, or did you fall and hit your head? This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard from anyone, and I used to think you were one of the smartest people I know. If you go through with this, you must be the dumbest person I've ever met." Sarah simply responded to her friend, "Good evening to you too, Lauren." "Yes, I am, but what about you?" Lauren just stared at her. Sarah saw the anger and pain in her eyes. Sarah turned to Emily. "Your turn." Emily shook her head. "You know how I feel about this affair of yours. I'd say more, but I'm afraid I couldn't be as polite as Lauren." Sarah smiled sadly. "Do you think you could curse better than Lauren?" Emily replied without smiling. "Well, no one can curse better than Lauren," but she left out the words fallen woman, cheater, adulteress, idiot, and maybe the worst disappointment of all. "But there's one thing I really need to say. I think you're planning to make the biggest mistake of your life. But I love you, and I'll be here to help you no matter what happens." Lauren just shook her head. Damn, what you want to do is so wrong and so stupid, but I'll be here for you too. Just so you know, I'll be saying 'I told you so' over and over again." Sarah hugged her friends. "Thank you for your love. I know you can't support what I'm doing, but it's great to know I can count on you too after this. You both know I don't do things halfway. I've made a commitment, and it's time to see this matter through to its natural conclusion." Lauren pleaded softly. "Sarah, there's nothing natural about betrayal, and commitment to betrayal is the opposite of the true meaning of the word commitment." Sarah sat silently for several minutes, and then stood up and said, "I need to finish my errands for tomorrow. I'll bring a bottle of wine. Please stay and drink for me." Sarah completed her instructions and approached the dark house. She gathered her thoughts and then sent a long text message to Emily. She knew Emily was angry with her, but she also knew her friend would help her. She opened the trunk of her car. She realized she couldn't leave her purchases in the car overnight. Tomorrow would be too cold to wear them. She hid them in the downstairs hallway closet. After that, she slipped into bed next to Michael and tried to sleep. That night, sleep didn't come to Sarah. Finally, at 3 a.m., she got out of bed and went downstairs. She saw the wedding album on the living room table and thought that if Michael could look at their wedding album, she could too. After flipping through 2 pages, she closed the album and started to cry. She had to make him understand. At 5 a.m., she gave up on the idea of sleeping and went to the bathroom to shower. After her shower, she put on Victoria's Secret lingerie and then opened her clothing bag and put on the beautiful item inside. She took the suitcase she had prepared earlier and carried it to the car. Then she placed the Victoria's Secret bag next to her suitcase. She went into the kitchen and wrote a short note. She laughed to herself. She was leaving a Dear John letter and placed the note on the coffee maker. She turned off the light and walked to the car, determined to finish what she had started. Michael woke up and looked at the alarm clock. It was 6:15, and when he turned over, he realized he was sleeping alone. It occurred to him that she hadn't waited until that night. He had pushed her to Ethan Carter. He imagined her lying in Ethan Carter's bed, and that image hit him deeply. For the first time, he overestimated himself. Should he have let her have one night to try with another man? She promised to belong only to him after that night. Had he really lost the happiness of his life because of his ego and pride? Reflecting on his situation, Michael realized he could never love her again if she went with Ethan Carter. He could live with her putting their children first because that's what a mother should do. But he could never live with her putting another man before her husband. Over 22 years, they had both earned mutual respect and loyalty. She expected no less. He would accept nothing less. He hoped she was at home, maybe sleeping in one of the other rooms. Michael checked all the rooms and found no signs that she had returned home that night. Upon entering the kitchen, he saw a note on the coffee maker. He opened the letter and read the short note. "Please understand." That was all she wrote. Michael slumped into one of the kitchen chairs and began to cry. He feared this, but deep in his soul, he still hoped she would stay, forget this crazy idea, and remain his wife. After making coffee, He went upstairs, showered, and dressed quickly. Then he filled a travel bag with some clothes and went downstairs. Michael filled his thermos with coffee and headed toward the front door, taking one last look at the house that was his home. He turned off the light and closed the door. The cold morning air hit his face as he walked down the steps. He had forgotten to start the car, but he thought the cold would help him wake up and maybe snap him out of the numbness he felt. As he walked to his car, he noticed the engine was running. He opened the back door, and as he put his bag inside, he saw a suitcase and a Victoria's Secret bag in the back seat. In the passenger seat, he saw Sarah sleeping in the car. He closed the back door quietly and paused as he reached for the door handle. He cried tears of joy seeing his wife, his love. Now he knew they had a chance. Michael took a deep breath and opened the car door. As he got into the car, Sarah stirred and looked at him. "Good morning," she whispered softly, rubbing her eyes. "Good morning," Michael replied. After a brief pause, he asked, "How long have you been here?" Sarah looked at her watch and replied, "About 2 hours. I couldn't sleep, and then I was worried you'd leave without me, so I decided to wait in the car. I filled the gas tank and bought a dozen donuts from Dunkin' for the road." Michael opened the donut box and said, "There are only 7 donuts here." Sarah finally woke up and replied, "There were a dozen for both of us, and I already ate my share." Smiling, Michael grabbed one of the donuts and let it melt in his mouth. "This will hold me until we have breakfast at the Blue Diner. What do you think of their special pancakes and bacon?" Sarah shook her head. "I'm not dressed for the Blue Diner." Michael was confused. "Sarah, there's no dress code at the Blue Diner. You can wear whatever you want there." Sarah smiled. "I know you can wear almost anything, but you can't wear almost nothing." After finishing speaking, she opened her coat to show Michael a purple lingerie set. "Well, it's almost nothing," Michael agreed. "Is the coat new?" Sarah replied, "Yes. I traded my dress for this magnificent coat in case you didn't check the Victoria's Secret bag. I returned those other lingerie items and bought these especially for you." Sarah placed her hand on his chin and lifted his head so he looked into her eyes. "This set and the body underneath are meant for your eyes and your eyes only, for all the days and nights of our lives." After a brief pause, she continued, "I'm sorry for the hell I've put you through these last few months. You were right about almost everything. You were only wrong about 2 things. Last night, I dressed for you and no one else, and I did meet with Emily and Lauren. The second thing you were wrong about was that when we were intimate, I was with Ethan. Ethan never entered our bedroom. I didn't close my eyes to think of him, but I couldn't look you in the eyes because I was so ashamed of what I wanted to do. I'm ashamed to admit that the shame I felt didn't stop me from planning to be with him." She looked at him and said quietly, "Now I really understand." He kissed her. They had a lot to talk about, a lot of work ahead to repair their marriage. But his heart leaped with joy when he realized she finally understood. As Michael drove past the Blue Diner, he looked at Sarah. She had fallen back asleep shortly after they hit the highway. He remembered everything he did on Friday. They had a lot to talk about, and he knew any honest conversation had to include his confession. Michael remembered that night 7 years ago. He was in San Francisco for the company's quarterly meeting. At the time, he was the department head, and his venture brought huge results for the company. Foreign companies were buying out their American competitors, but Michael saw an interesting opportunity. He advocated for the idea of buying an Italian company with excellent engineers but serious financial problems. His mentor, the CEO, approved the purchase, and it was a huge success. The acquisition brought several teams of experienced engineers. The big bonus was the access to the European market that this company provided to the rest of the corporation, along with the strong presence of the Italian company in the Chinese market. The deal ultimately generated billions of dollars. This was the crowning achievement of the CEO's career and put Michael on the fast track to a corporate career. That night, Sarah was at home in Washington, D.C., with the kids at a school band concert, so Michael celebrated his success with his colleagues and, especially, with Jessica Hayes, a wonderful marketing representative from another division. Jessica and he had a long-term professional relationship, the kind of friendship. He drank enough to loosen his inhibitions, but not too much. They danced much closer than a married man should with someone other than his wife. They headed to her room. For the first time, he thought of his wife and the wonderful family he had at home. He looked at the beautiful Jessica Hayes and couldn't find a single reason to enter the room. He took 2 steps back and then literally ran back to the elevator. He entered his room and showered, wanting to wash away Jessica's scent. It was 1 a.m. in his home in Washington, but he called Sarah. He needed to hear her voice. After several rings, she answered sleepily. Michael assured Sarah that he was fine and that nothing bad had happened. Then he told her the good news, talked about the success of his venture and his promotion with a big salary increase. He cried as she excitedly told him how proud she was of him and how she always knew he'd succeed. She told him how much she loved him. Through his tears, he realized he had almost shared one of the biggest moments of his life with the wrong woman. Sarah's opinion and happiness were all that mattered to him. As Michael drove toward the beach, he knew he had to tell her. He had to make her understand why he truly understood her feelings. He had been in her shoes, and that's why he could listen to her and say sincerely, "I understand." Ethan Carter was alone in the office of Daniel Harrison. From Harrison & Co., Daniel was the vice president of human resources, and Ethan was sent to his office as soon as he arrived that Monday morning. He didn't understand why he was there. He had recently missed a couple of deadlines in his pursuit of Sarah, but he felt he could recover quickly. The meeting disrupted his plans for that morning. He needed to talk to Sarah about what happened over the weekend. Not only had she stood him up, but she also sent two of her friends, Emily and Lauren, to tell him about it. Ethan remembered how scared he was of this woman, Lauren. Her father served in the Navy for 25 years, but he couldn't match the way this woman could curse. She humiliated him right there in the lobby of the Four Seasons. He remembered that even the hotel security seemed afraid to intervene. When he turned to return to his seat, he froze upon seeing the photograph on Daniel Harrison's desk. It was a family portrait of Daniel, his 3 children, and his smiling wife. Now he knew the name of the woman who had scolded him so thoroughly, Lauren Harrison. Now he understood why he waited.
Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, it's easy and fast.